Good afternoon and welcome to our Preparing Your Community for Hurricane Season program today. I am Mark Friedlander, Director of Corporate Communications at the Insurance Information Institute, and joining me, as you see on the screen, Scott Holman, who is the Media Relations Director for the III. First, start off with a brief overview of who we are. Founded in 1960, the III provides objective, fact-based information about insurance while also being a trusted source of unique data-driven insights which inform and empower consumers. We want people to have the information they need to make educated decisions, manage risk, and appreciate the essential value of insurance. We have more than 60 insurance company members, including 9 of the top 10 largest writers of P&C insurance in the US. Our focus is to create and disseminate information. We neither lobby on behalf of the insurance industry, nor do we sell insurance. We are not an agent and we are not a carrier. Today we'll be talking about preparedness for your community, and really some of the key messages here are hurricanes could shatter lives and devastate communities. Preparing your community can help residents and business owners minimize the impact of the storm and limit the economic and social impacts for your municipality. And the best time to start hurricane preparedness is now. Officially, the season just began, but we tell people now is the time to prepare long before any threats are imminent. In our workshop this afternoon, we'll focus on what community leaders in hurricane-prone areas need to know and provide you with key messages you should disseminate to residents and business owners in your areas as we embark upon the 6-month season, which runs through November 30th. And at this point, we are going to key up a brief message from III non-resident scholar Phil Klotzbach in the Colorado State University Tropical Meteorological Project Team. They released their updated seasonal forecast this morning. So let's hear this brief update from Dr. Klotzbach. Mike, please cue the video. Thank you.
This is Phil Klotzbach in the Department of Atmospheric Science in Colorado State University and non-resident scholar for III. We recently released our updated Atlantic seasonal hurricane forecast and have increased our forecast slightly for the 2020 hurricane season. We now call for a well above average season with a total of 19 named storms, including those that have already formed, of those 9 becoming hurricanes, and of those 4 becoming major Category 3, 4, 5 hurricanes in the Saffir-Simpson wind scale with maximum winds of 111 miles per hour or greater. An average hurricane season has about 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. A couple of the big factors that we're looking at for this year is one is that we do not anticipate El Nino conditions this summer and fall. El Nino is characterized by warmer than normal water in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. When it occurs, it increases upper level westerly winds that tear apart hurricanes as they are trying to develop and to intensify, especially in the Caribbean, but also extending farther east into the central tropical Atlantic. Portions of the tropical Atlantic are warmer than normal, and the subtropical Atlantic is much warmer than normal right now. Warmer water provides more fuel for developing hurricanes, but also tends to be characterized by lower pressure, more moisture, and a more unstable atmosphere, all of which favor increased hurricane activity. It is important to recognize that these and a more unstable atmosphere, all of which favor increased hurricane activity. It is important to recognize that these forecasts are not perfect, and even if the forecast verifies exactly correct, we can't say when or where these storms are going to track, or if a significant hurricane will make landfall. The general public needs to remember that it just takes that one storm to make it an active season for you, so now is the time to get the hurricane preparedness kit together so that you'll be ready when and if storms do threaten this season.
Well, just as Phil stated, this is going to be an above normal season. So now is really the time for communities to get prepared and take those precautions that they need to do. We also want to remind people that FEMA has also put out some new guidelines.
Scott, we need to get the, we need to get the slides back up. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
FEMA has issued new guidelines this year due to the impacts of COVID-19, encouraging residents to prepare earlier than normal as well. Because there may be some difficulty in getting some of those supplies you need. One of the recommendations that they're needing, and we've needed it for the last few months, is extra hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies. Also, 2 face coverings are recommended to have on hand for everybody in your family. We do have some guidelines that we recommend at the III as well in creating a hurricane kit. The III recommends that you have a 14-day supply of non-perishable goods in case of prolonged power outages. This includes a gallon of drinking water per day per person. I know a lot of people have been storing up on water during COVID-19. Haven't always understood why, but for hurricane season, that's going to be really important should you be without services. And especially as it's heating up now too, people are really going to need to stay hydrated. Also recommend that if you have medications, you want to make sure that everybody in your family, and including pets if your pets are on medications, but keep those meds updated and ready to go for everybody in your family. Have flashlights, have batteries, have a portable NOAA weather radio so that you can stay in touch if you lose all power, or if you're everything's run down on your phones and computers, so that you can keep up to date on information. Because you're going to be stocking food, hopefully in cans, make sure that you have a manual can opener. A lot of people use electric ones, but have a manual can opener in your kit so that should you be completely without power, that you'll be able to get to some of those supplies that you've stored. Have a basic toolkit on hand. I noticed that, on Amazon and some of the stores out there, they're putting together some of these toolkits that are easy to have on hand, but you want to have some basic wrenches and a hammer and some screwdrivers, some things that'll help do some basic tasks should you be without power. And then also you want to gather all of that documentation that you might need something really bad happens, and that means all of the contact information for family, but also important people like your doctor, your insurance agent. Have documents like a power of attorney, a copy of your will if you can, passports, social security cards, and because we're talking about hurricane season, put those things in a large plastic bag, or make sure that they're protected from water. You want to keep them dry and keep them safe. Anyway, those of you who have been through hurricanes probably have some tools in place, but make sure that as the season starts back up again, that you take inventory of what you have on hand, replace what needs to be replacing, and just update that toolkit as you go along.
Thanks, Scott. Talk a little bit about how to prepare your property, the landscape around your home, because hurricane force winds, they can turn landscaping materials into projectiles, literally missiles that will shoot right through your windows, in your doors, and much of the property damage that we see associated with hurricanes occurs after the windstorm, when rain enters the structure through broken windows. The windows have been broken because of the projectiles, and doors and openings in the roof as well, and that's where you get most of the damage. So here's some steps that property owners can take to mitigate your risk and make your property more resilient to severe weather events like hurricanes, tropical storms. One is replace gravel or rock landscaping materials. The shredded bark, which is lighter, won't cause as much harm. It won't become a projectile like the heavier materials. Cut weak branches and trees that could fall on your house to keep shrubbery trimmed. Install storm shutters to protect your windows from breakage. Alternatively, fit plywood panels to your windows, which could be nailed to window frames when a storm approaches. Make sure exterior doors are hurricane proof and have at least 3 hinges and a deadbolt lock that is at least 1 inch long. Sliding glass doors that you have in various areas of your home, usually the kitchen, the family room, the living room, perhaps even bedrooms have sliding doors. They should be made of tempered glass and during a storm covered with shutters or plywood. These types of doors are more vulnerable to wind damage than most other doors. Replace old garage doors and tracks with a door that is approved both for wind pressure and impact protection. And those standards, particularly where I'm based here in Florida, have really increased over the last couple of decades in terms of the quality and protection levels of doors. Wind coming into your home through a large opening poses grave problems for the rest of your home, especially your roof. And your roof really is your we always talk about the roof being really the first level of protection for your home from the wrath of Mother Nature. So you want to make sure there's no damages to your roof or any areas around the roof. Also seal outside wall openings, such as vents, outdoor electrical pipes, garden hose bibs, and locations where cables or pipes go through the wall. Use a high quality urethane-based caulk to prevent water prevention around the home. That's a great way, very simple way to prevent water prevention. If you live in a mobile home, in your community, there are many residents that live in mobile homes, especially in southern states. We know in Florida, that's a very heavy part of populations in a lot of counties around the state. Make sure you know how to secure it against high winds, because mobile homes they can be very, very dangerous during a major wind event like a hurricane or tropical storm. And if you have a boat on a trailer, know how to anchor the trailer to the ground or the house. But I want to get back just real quick on the roof for a minute. We always recommend to have your roof inspected annually before the bulk of the hurricane season comes. As we know, it's a 6-month season, but the peak usually is mid-August to mid-October. So you want to have your roof inspected to make sure it is secure, and you can get a contracted bonded licensed contractor, rather, I should say, bonded and licensed. And you can find those recommendations, those names through your county. County offices usually have that kind of information, that they are licensed with the county or licensed even with the state at some points. But you want to make sure it's a very reputable contractor that has good recommendations, good referrals, and have them check out the roof and see if there's anything you need to do to repair that roof to make sure it is not vulnerable. As I said earlier, you really want to stop Mother Nature in its tracks, and it starts with the roof. That's really important. Scott, turn back to you.
You also want to take some steps to protect your business. You want to create an emergency business response and continuity plan, and that it's going to include keeping a list of all of your employees handy. Depending on the size of your business, you may want to set up some sort of phone tree so that one person's not having to contact everyone, but you want to have a list of those key employees handy, and make sure that you know how to get in touch with them, and as well as your vendors and any suppliers or people that are going to make recovering your operations as smoothly as possible. And then make sure you review your business insurance policies to make sure that you know what is covered and what isn't.
Conducting an insurance checkup. This is the ideal time of year for residents in your communities to meet with their insurance agent, or just talk to them on the phone, review all your coverage. But just to start, just so you kind of have an idea of what coverage you may already have before you talk to your agent, there's something called the declaration page in your policy. It's usually the first page of the policy, and that provides a summary and overview of your coverage in deductibles. It'll kind of give you the breakdown of what coverages you had and what those deductibles are. Really important, especially with hurricane deductibles in all coastal states, actually 19 states, plus the District of Columbia, have a hurricane deductible in place. All homeowners, renters, and business owners should contact a professional at this point, ensure they are adequately protected. When we talk about hurricane season protection, it's about financial protection, protecting your assets, your family's assets, your business assets. So that's why you want to make sure you have the right amount of coverage, because if you have a catastrophic loss to your home, you want to make sure you have enough to either repair or completely replace the home. You need to have enough coverage. If your home is valued at $300,000 and you only have $250,000 of coverage, you're going to be short, and you're going to be paying that out of pocket. So you want to talk to your insurance professional, make sure you have full coverage, not only for the structure of the home, but for all of your possessions. Make sure you document all the possessions you have in the home, your clothing, your furniture, your jewelry, your electronics, everything you could think of that falls within the category of home possessions, and make sure you have full coverage for those as well. And then lastly, your vehicle. You want to make sure that your vehicles are protected, your autos, your trucks, whatever you have outside your house that you keep that are part of your property, you want to make sure those are protected. And the way you do that is with optional comprehensive auto coverage. Roughly 80% of US consumers have comprehensive auto, and that's all non-collision damage. So that's everything from fire, flood, vandalism, hail, falling rocks or trees or other hazards, anything that's a non-accident collision type of situation. So you want to make sure you're well prepared both with your home and with your vehicles as well. And then flood insurance. I want to talk about flood insurance. 90% of natural disasters involve flooding. Flood insurance is a separate policy from your standard homeowners, business owners, and renters policies. It's not included. Even though you have a hurricane deductible in your homeowner's policy, you don't have flood. So you want to make sure you are protected from flood. And basically what we talk about flood is that's water damage from the ground up. And floods could cause significant damage. We saw in Hurricane Harvey, we were talking about that on a flood panel this morning, well over $100,000 of damage on average per home. And 3/4 of the homes that were damaged by flood in the Houston area during Harvey in 2017 had no coverage at all. So if you had flood protection, you had full coverage. If you didn't have flood protection and you applied for emergency disaster relief from FEMA, you got $5,000 basically. So it shows the value of flood insurance, and a flood policy through the National Flood Insurance Program runs on average across the US $700. So think about that. $700 investment for maybe $100,000 or more of damage. It's an easy decision to make, and it's something we really need all of our emergency management folks and community leaders to stress to your local municipalities. But there are other options on flood too now. In addition to the National Flood Insurance Program, you also have options now in private insurers. And we know here in Florida, we have several dozen private writers that are now offering flood insurance. And some of the differences there are larger maximums, larger thresholds of coverage, less time for it to take effect because an NFIP policy takes 30 days. So you may be able to get it in as little as 7 days, according to one of our panelists this morning who sells those policies, 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. But the bottom line is you can't do it at the last minute. You can't go out and purchase a flood policy if flood is, the storm's coming this week. You've just gotten the storm warnings from the National Hurricane Center, the Weather Service. You can't buy flood coverage today for a storm coming this weekend. So you need to plan ahead. And that's just really essential.
Yeah, I'm sure glad I got one, Mark. I got one a couple of years ago, and just last week we had heavy rains here in Kansas City. I'm not in hurricane territory, but NFIP has been great to follow up with me, and they're sending an adjuster out. I had some damage last week, and mine was well below the national average in cost, and so it's sure comforting to know that it's.
That's a great message, Scott. No, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because we want to remind people flood could happen anywhere, anytime. 90% of natural disasters, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, it doesn't have to be in a hurricane zone. It could be anywhere in the country. And we've seen floods over the past decade in areas you would never think would flood. So you always need to be prepared. And one more item, actually, I forgot to mention. You might want to talk to your insurance agent too about sewer backup insurance, because that's another situation that we see in many of the coastal states, that sewer backup becomes a big problem when major storms hit the area. So we want to talk about that. And I'll turn it back to Scott to talk about home and business inventories.
And I don't want to be the salesperson for everything, but that sewer backup that comes, it's usually $129 a year. If you use it once, it more than pays for itself. I've had to use that as well. And I know people that have had $10,000 in expenses and didn't have that when they have to have something corrected. So again, it's really a great value for the cost. Well, let's talk a little bit about developing a home or business inventory. We all think we know what we have, but when you're hit in a time of disaster, Do you really think that you've got so much weighing you down and so much that you're worried about? Are you going to be able to remember everything? That's why it's so important to create a home inventory or a business or inventory. Go through and catalog, and you don't have to make this difficult. And if some of you are still sheltering in place and you've got kids, get them involved with this right now. Use the smartphone, go around and record, take pictures or videos and talk about some of the things you have. Open drawers and cabinets and closets and show what you have to help create that list, so that if something does happen, you can recall what you have. A lot of the companies have apps that are free to use out there that help you do this. A lot of other organizations, there are a lot of free apps out there to choose, but just go room by room, and you don't have to do it all in one day. But if you take it, if you want to set some goals and say, I'm going to do this part of the house by this time, and just get that all done, and then email it to yourself or keep that file electronically so that you have that when or if or when something bad happens. But again, most insurance companies have some of these inventory app tools that are available. If you just search the Apple or Google Play sites, you can find, but by just putting in home inventory. But those records, and if you feel comfortable giving that to your insurance agent just to store with your records, you can do that. But it's important that you go through this every year, because as our lives change, so do our possessions and our needs. You want to make sure that if you get something new, you want to make sure you document it. And those big ticket items, you want to save receipts if you can, save serial numbers. Some of those apps will let you take a picture of the serial number, and it will grab that number and keep that record for you. But certainly those big ticket items, you want to make sure you have documentations of what you paid and those numbers, so that this makes that claim processing or claim file process so much easier if in the case of a disaster. And then you still can do it by the paper and pencil route, but in this day and age when it's easy to lose paper, give it to electronically to one of your other family members, or put it on a flash drive and store it in your safe deposit box or someplace outside of your home. Because if you're hit by a hurricane or some other natural disaster, you want to make sure that you've got access to those files.
Great advice, Scott. Really appreciate that. And then another key step in preparedness for communities is creating an evacuation plan. Now, we know evacuation situations might be different this year because of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there might be, some situations where people are going to shelter in place, but yet there will be other situations where you must evacuate. The situation is going to be so severe. According to Dr. Klotzbach's forecast today, there's a 70% chance of a major hurricane that's Category 3 or higher hitting the U.S. coastline, anywhere from Maine to Texas, both the Atlantic and Gulf coastlines. And if it's a Category 4 or 5, that's a catastrophic hurricane. They're going to have to, communities in those areas that are impacted are going to have to evacuate people. So you need to determine where you're going well before the storm. Don't wait for the warnings. Now is the time to map out a plan. Be prepared. Map out where you're going, map out your evacuation route. We also talk about pre-arranging a designated place to meet in case you and your family members are separated, because you never know, you might have to go in separate cars. There could be, a lot of havoc, a lot of chaos. You need to be as prepared as possible to deal with that. So have a designated meeting place. And then, Scott already mentioned about pets. Find a safe place for pets in the evacuation plan as well ahead of time. You can contact, local hotels, motels, or hotels and motels where you're planning to head, rather, to find locations that allow pets. Check boarding facilities, although those in your area might be shut down as well, depending on severity of the storm. So that may not be the best choice. And then check what your community is doing to respond. See if they are going to open shelters, and I know there's some communities that are, and some are going to try other approaches this year, like getting hotels and motel rooms for families that have to evacuate. But if there are shelters, you want to make sure, if you're going to go to that shelter, that it accepts pets as well. And then create a disaster kit for your pets. Don't just think about the people in your family, think about the pets in your family. that disaster kit should have medications, medical records, a minimum 3 days worth of food and water. You may want to bump that up, but that's what we currently have guidance for, but you might want to think of even, that's just the minimum. You might want to think of exceeding that. Bring favorite toys or a blanket, a current photo of your pet, contact information for your veterinarian, and pet insurance contact information if you purchase pet insurance. You want to make sure that's easy to access. You want to have a copy of that with you in your to-go kit. And then that to-go bag, what we call the family to-go bag, should also have prescriptions, first aid kit, bottled water, flashlights, important documents as we previously discussed, and your home inventory on a flash drive. And Scott said, if you want to go the old-fashioned way, have a paper copy as well, but flash drive is probably simpler, especially if a lot of digital files, photo files, maybe video files. But that's just a great way to be prepared and make sure you are ready for any storm that comes your way during, once again, this expected above average season. And lastly, we thank you all for attending today. We hope you found this very informative. Please feel free to reach out to either Scott or myself. If you want more information, we're happy to follow up with you and provide you with more guidance. And more information, we have great resources available at www.iii.org. If you go to the website, you'll see the news release we announced today with the updated Colorado State University forecast. And in that news release, there is a list of all types of guidance, all types of resources for hurricane season. It's really a full-fledged guide of online resources that are all areas of our website, as well as some external resources such as FEMA and the flood program and things of that nature. But great information for you, your residents, your business owners in your community, so that businesses are prepared and ready for whatever comes their way this season. We thank you for watching today, and please stay safe. Have a great evening.